Hello, everyone. Happy Friday. Yes, it is Feedback Friday again. Here we are. Another week has passed, and it's an opportunity for us to pause and reflect on the power of feedback. For those of you who are joining me for the first time, my name is Dr. Shanita Williams. I consider myself a feedback enthusiast, and I believe that if you have a feedback mentality, you'll have the keys to unlocking and unleashing your full potential. Tonight, we are going to talk about another aspect of feedback that I also believe is underutilized. When I think about feedback and I talk to people, a lot of people say, I want feedback, but I don't get enough. Have you ever been in that situation where you feel like maybe no news is good news? Some people feel like, hey, they haven't told me anything, so I think I'm doing all right. But I want to challenge you to actually pause. If you are not receiving enough feedback to help you evolve, grow, and develop, you want to make sure that you take control of that. So I'm going to share a few stats with you guys. 65% of employees say they wish they had more feedback, but 74% of them say, based on the feedback they receive, it's actually not really meaningful. Can you believe that? You want more feedback simply because the feedback that you're getting isn't really helping you. Have you ever been in that situation where people give you feedback like, good job, or try harder, or don't worry, you'll get it next time? That's actually not helpful information, right? That vague and that lack of specificity makes it really difficult for you to figure out how to grow. So again, 65% of people say, I want more feedback, because 74% of people say, out of the feedback that I get, it's actually not really useful. And when you look at millennials, only 17% of millennials say that the feedback that they get is actually valuable. Just sit in that for a minute. If feedback is the key to our overall growth and development, and only 17% of millennials feel like it's even valuable, so we're in this painful exchange for feedback. I feel like the demand is high, but the supply is low, and the quality is also low. Why is it? Well, that's why I exist, because I believe we haven't really developed our skills sufficiently to be able to learn how to do it effectively, because you can recklessly give feedback to anyone. But we want to make sure that we do it in a way that really aids in people's growth and development. Now, one more stat for you guys before I move on to the next thing. There's actually a statistic that says 21% of managers actually admitted to avoiding giving feedback altogether. So how then do we take charge of our future, our growth, and our development if people don't even have the confidence maybe to even give it to us? Here's how. Tonight, I want to talk with you guys briefly about how to ask for feedback. So that's how you take your power back. If you find yourself in a situation where you are sitting there and waiting for feedback to come from on high in order for you to grow, you might find yourself sitting there for quite some time. If you have a manager or a team of people who just don't feel confident to give feedback, or if they give you feedback that's actually not useful. So here, I'm going to give you a few tips on how you can approach getting feedback for yourself. So the first thing that you want to do is check your sources. I think sometimes we focus only on the hierarchy. You know, we get feedback from people who are above us, like a teacher or our parents or our supervisors. But there's actually several other sources we can tap into. What about your colleagues? Your peers probably see you more often than your own supervisor. They're great people who have perspective of really what it looks like when you're attempting to do your job each and every day. I actually asked my kids for feedback. I actually did it right before I came on here. Your kids have so much information, and I love that they have candid, just unfiltered feedback to give. So don't limit your sources just to people who are above you, people who are in positions of authority, maybe positions that you revere. Those are important. But also think about some of those untapped sources in your life. Maybe it's somebody in your church. Maybe it's actually, an Instagram member. Maybe it's somebody who you meet for the very first time. Look for the information wherever you can. Don't limit your sources so that you have more information to guide your future. The second thing that I want you to keep in mind is also thinking about the setting with which you ask for feedback. Now, we're going to get into what you should be asking, but you also want to think about the setting. Have you ever asked someone for feedback? Say you just did an Instagram Live and quickly said, give me feedback. Maybe you asked someone in the middle of a presentation and said, hey, do you guys have any feedback on how I can get better? Have you ever had to deal with the silence? The silence where people are just like, I don't know. So you want to think about the setting and really give people the space to process the feedback that they're going to give you. And if you do that, you're going to increase the likelihood that you're going to get something that's meaningful. Now, you don't want to give too much space and time in between that because they might just forget the experience altogether. Hopefully not. So you want to make sure that if you're going to follow up, give them some space to really process the interaction or the exchange. You want to make sure you follow up timely and not let too much time go by. Now, let's talk a little bit about when we ask for feedback. When you ask for feedback, there's an art and science to that too. Kind of like in the example I just shared with you guys. Sometimes people just say, do you have any feedback for me? That's kind of overwhelming. Would you agree? That's really big. Do you want me to give you feedback on your outfit, your facial expressions, the content of your message, or what you did last week? Or do you want me to give you feedback on what you did 10 years ago? Because I bet they're holding on to that information for you too. So it's important that when you ask for feedback, you're specific about your request. Not general and just wide, do you have any feedback for me? But if you can help that person zone in on what you're thinking about, you will increase the likelihood of you getting something that's really meaningful and something that's going to help you turn the meter on your presentation, on your product, on your productivity, or on your overall goals. So how do you do that? So here's some examples. Instead of saying, what feedback do you have for me? Or how can I get better in general? Being specific about, what you're looking for. So you could say things like, hey, I actually struggled wrapping up the end of my Instagram Live, or I actually struggled when I tried to get group participation. What suggestions would you have for me on how I might increase engagement in my session? That's specific. That person can zone in and think about what you did do and maybe start to think about where the opportunities are. Again, that specificity helps target it and gives that person the confidence to give you some meaningful feedback. Now, here's the thing. When you're asking for this feedback, you also want to be prepared to receive it, okay? Because here's the thing. They'll probably tell you a lot of great things. They'll probably say, oh, overall, I thought it was great. But you want to get to what was great because you want to repeat that. So always focus on what worked for you. What worked well in the presentation? What worked well in that product demonstration? What worked well in my assignment that I did for you? How did you like the cover of the project portfolio? You want to get specific, but then you want to be specific about the positive things. But then you also want to find out and create space for them to say, how might I have taken it to the next level? How might I have really enhanced and demonstrated another level of my performance? When you do that, you're now giving them permission to lean in and give you that very candid feedback. Now, again, you want to be prepared for that because when you ask for feedback, I believe you only get one shot. If you ask for feedback and then you don't handle it well, chances are those individuals are not going to want to give you feedback again. They don't think you can handle it. But I believe that you can build your feedback muscle by starting small and not asking for a long list of things you can improve, but really thinking about one thing I can do to get better. Now, I see Dr. Walker with us. I love the suggestion on taking your power back. You're right, because we can sit and fall victim to waiting for someone to give us feedback, or maybe waiting for someone to build the confidence to do so. But when you put yourself in that driver's seat and you show up and say, I want to grow, here's what I need, you're actually going to start training people on how they should treat you. They will start learning that every time you do a product demonstration or a presentation or a paper or an assignment, that you're going to come back and you're going to say, what worked and how can I get better? And they're going to be prepared every time to give you that. And guess what? You're going to accelerate your growth and development because you took charge. So take that power back. I see you, Denise. She said, yes, take your power back. No more waiting. So that 65% of you in that survey that said, I wish I had more feedback, you now have the tools on how to do so. So thank you guys so much for joining me for my short Feedback Friday tonight. I hope you got one nugget that you can take with you. Take that power back. You can unlock and unleash your potential by challenging people to do the same. Have a good evening, guys. Thanks for joining me. See you next time.